Cari amici sportivi, welcome. Guys, I'm going to say Milan Weekly Podcast, but this is something different. Near and dear to my heart, guys. If you listen to Milan Weekly Podcast on a regular, I refer a lot to local soccer. It's something that I'm very passionate about. My kids play. I have friends who are very dedicated to local soccer. I have friends who make a living via local soccer. So, talking with Presidente, we decided to put this together. The local soccer show, guys. As simple as that. Basically, every 2 weeks, getting someone different from either here in Quebec, somewhere in Canada. We'll stretch it out to the United States if we have to, but just focusing on grassroots soccer and how these guys who are putting in a tremendous amount of work, guys, a tremendous amount of work to make provincial soccer better, local soccer in your city better, and again, like we see now with Canada, at the national level too. So. Our first guest is someone that I've spoke to before on the show, and I need to have him on many more times. His name is Mike Vitulano, fellow RDPer. Thank you and welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Mike, I would be insulting you if I had to introduce you, and your many career goals and your many career achievements. If you could tell people, give yourself a little introduction. It's your time to plug yourself and your career and what you're doing now at Soccer Quebec.
Okay, well, that's to speak about myself a little bit is always difficult for me, but I'll give it a shot. So I had a small playing career, and then I turned that into coaching fairly quick. So it's about 12 years. I'm full time coaching different levels from regional levels to provincial levels. I even traveled to Manitoba and worked in Manitoba for a bit more than a year, and now came back to Soccer Quebec. So full time in the game, contributing to the structure, contributing to development of our sport, and that's it. So director of development at Soccer Quebec. It's a new role for me for the last about year and a half. I was in charge of coaching education at Soccer Quebec right before that. Worked with various regions, Lac Saint Louis, Bourassa, and as I said, elsewhere in Canada. So I'm happy to be back at home working for Soccer Quebec, contributing to our structure, to our game, and seeing it evolve. And then having the women and the men of our country doing so well, it continues to inspire not only technicians like myself, leaders in the game, but also the kids and the parents in our structure. So I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Amazing, Mike, and again, I thank you for that. There, and it's guys like you that need to have a bit more of a spotlight, especially here. I know talking to you before, you're not like me. You're a bit more timid. I can talk about myself for quite a bit of time, and probably run over that time. But going through this journey that you embarked on, as you said, short playing career, and then you what made you go the coaching route? What made you go the tactical route?
Yeah, so two reasons. One, I was on a scholarship in the U.S., and I think the coach that I had there kind of there was one season, my second season, where I almost blew out my knee. It was close. I didn't need surgery, but I took on. I was already captain of the team in my second year, my sophomore year, and I took on a bit of a different role on the team because I couldn't play. I couldn't play for at least 3 months, and already it's a short season. I only played the last 6 or 7 games, and we ended up going to the Final Four in the national final on that year. But those 3 months that I was out, I was doing recovery on my own. But I asked the coach, "Can I be on the bench? Can I be more involved?" I was already coaching at home, at home in RDP or in Laval when I was younger, since the age of 16. But then I fast forward to 23, 24 years old in the US. The coaching was different, right? I saw next to me a professional coach, someone coaching NCAA, a guy from Holland, Marco Koolman, and it kind of inspired me. And I saw that I had maybe some leadership skills to work with people and to inspire players. And players were always telling me, how the hell did you have typically when players are injured, they kind of zone out and they worry about themselves and getting better. But I was was trying to always keep that leadership role as captain of the team and put the team first and not myself. And I ended up, like I said, coming back from that injury, playing with a massive knee brace the size of my two legs put together. But
Yeah.
played that. I played that the rest of the season. We went to a national final. Unfortunately, lost. I even got a red card, a la Gattuso in that game. But I think that inspired me. The second thing that inspired me was Marc Dos Santos. So coming back home, I ended up playing for l'Attaque de Trois-Rivières, so Montreal's Impact's reserve team, and having him as a coach kind of got me even more into it, and then got to work with Andrew Olivieri at Lac Saint Louis with Jose Valdez, and then it just took off, and I developed a passion for it, became a student of the game a little bit more, and that's how the journey kind of begun.
So I touched on your soccer career and how you started in coaching because times have changed. It's different from when you were coming up the ranks and now how, I have friends who, of course, their daughters play. And because their daughters play or their sons play, they want to get involved, and they're involved for the right reasons. They're involved because of development, they're involved because they want to make a difference. Can you give us maybe an example of something that you said, wow, if I had this when I was coming up the ranks, it would have made my life easier? Or maybe something that we're doing today where maybe we could have relied a little bit on how we did it old school.
I think it's the standards in coaching, the standards in the facilities. I mean, the turf fields we have everywhere. The coaching improved a lot. We have some experienced coaches that have been in the game for 30 years that are evolving, are still students of the game. And then we have the new and upcoming young 20-year-olds that are coming in the game. They just finished playing or they're continuing to play and they want to give back. And so I think the coaching, the facilities, and the infrastructure that exists, social media. Right now we have access to more information. We don't have to go buy books to learn more about the game. You can have webinars everywhere. So all these things are helping. Then programming. When I think about a program like Sport Etudes, which exists for the last, I don't know, 13 years, I guess, something like that. So being a kid, if I was 12, 13 years old, training every single day, going half day school, half day on the field, working with qualified coaches, I think that would have definitely been a dream of mine, and I can see why kids want to do that. Then the standards of clubs has increased. There's clubs that go 3-4 times a week, so kids are committed to it, coaches are committed to it. So there's a lot of things that changed. But what I'm proud of is that a lot of people stayed in the game. Like even they saw the evolution of what it was in the the late 90s all the way to now. They saw the evolution and they're buying in. They see this change in society, and they're still buying in. So that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say my right ass cheek thanks the upgrade in facilities, because as two guys from RDP, we've played at René Masson.
Yeah.
And René Masson was the concrete jungle, ladies and gentlemen. It wasn't the fancy turf that our kids play on now that looks like grass. This was astral turf. This was burning salt sensation.
The worst one was the Claude Robillard one.
Yes.
That was it was like you felt, anyways, we would call them the pizzas. You slide and you have a pizza this big on your knees or in your ass cheek, like you said, and it changed now. But now are people always wanting turf? Like I remember 4 or 5 years ago, I proposed the boys session on the grass and the girls session on the turf, and the following week they switch to get a bit of both, knowing that the tournament we would go to would be on both surfaces. And the parents almost rebelled against me, saying we can't train on grass, but football is meant to be played on grass. Yes. In our conditions, in our weathers that we get, having turf is fantastic. But we had our national team play a game at Tim Hortons Field on turf, and the turf has to be a quality turf, but we need to go that route because of our weather.
Yeah, and we have to. Apparently the US coach was not happy with the turf.
Yeah,
so that's a question for later. Yeah, sport études. I agree with you 100%. That's a fantastic thing for kids growing up in high school, half in school and half on the field and keeping up their grades. For me, what I would like a little bit, and what I've seen, and this is my opinion from what I would like from the good old days, I like to call them, is the discipline portion of it. The discipline portion, I find, just seeing my son play and talking to some of my friends, there was a discipline when I was playing soccer. And I think that we're becoming a little bit too soft on that. And I think our children are suffering from that. What's your stance on that? Like, I'm not saying hardcore discipline. We're not going to be screaming at, but understand and be able to respect the game.
That's a great point, and we can all look back 20 years or 30 for some and remember one moment that you developed a value, you developed respect. It's not one moment, it's a series of moments. But I think sport, I'm convinced that sport helps kids, soccer in particular, or it can be any other sport, helps kids develop values for their future. We want better humans that can contribute to society, because the reality is that boys and girls won't all make it pro, won't all make a national team. But if you can make better citizens that contribute, then it's a win. So I agree with your point where in the coaching today, compared to back then, there's a little bit, it can be perceived as less discipline. But what I keep telling coaches, and I keep trying to reinforce that message, is that we have to be demanding with young kids, demanding in terms of the values, in terms of making sure that the effort is always there, the competitiveness is there. We have to build future winners at life, not winners of the game, right? If they end up winning a game, it's fantastic, but they have to win the challenges, they have to win the competition we put in front of them. That's going to develop the values. Teamwork is developed through sport. Respect is developed through sport. Sportsmanship is developed through sport. So I think we have to keep that. But I get that side of things, and I myself had the coaches that were very hard on discipline, and it helped us. It helped us as kids. We would place our bags perfectly. You remember this from the RDP days.
Yes.
Bags were perfectly placed. Our shirts are all tucked in, and we look professional going to tournaments. We look professional going to games. But that helps me today in my daily basis. Helps me being organized. That helps, right? So I get that side of things, and we definitely don't have to be soft with kids. I think we have to conversate more with kids, involve them in the process, but we can't give them carte blanche. We still have to have a rigid standards for sure.
Yeah, and something there just to add on that. I'm always someone who loved to play, but I understood winning, but I also got the chance to understand losing. And that for me is something that soccer gave me. That I wasn't the best player. I was always I love to eat, so I was always on the heavier side of the scale. I was always the one who was doing the cardio, the personal training on the side. You gotta lose a couple of pounds there, Stevie. You're gonna be good if you lose a couple of pounds. So for me, but losing teaches you how to win. And I think from what I see, and I see I never got a participation trophy. Like, this has to stop. And I think it has to come from above, and it has to trickle down, and it has to go sideways to the parents, where seventh place, guys, doesn't get a trophy. And if you lose a game, it's okay. And if you're going to cry, it's okay to cry, because you're going to understand that in life, if you don't do your job properly, it's not you're losing at the game of life if you don't understand how to lose, because
Yep.
there's not a lot of people out there who are going to go through life winning every single time. Do you see that as a very tricky subject to pass on to coaches nowadays, just because of how delicate uh, children, and I'm going to include the parents in there too, and the clubs, where losing is not really tolerated anymore? You can't say you lost, you just didn't win.
Yeah, those are all great points. For me, every age has a different definition of winning, and winning at a young age, 6 years old, winning is what is a kid that's starting to develop his motor skills, that is starting to learn how to do different things. Winning at the senior level, John Herdman has to win,
Yeah,
right?
or he loses his job.
Wilfred Nancy has to win. That's the different. The way you define it is completely different. But yeah, there's matches. There's a competition ahead in front of the kid, but we have to understand that it's a journey in the kid's development. And what coaches, what we try to preach, and it's getting better. I feel it through our system, is that we allow kids to make mistakes now, in the sense where in the past you'd make a mistake and we harp on you. Now, making the mistake is a learning process. If you leave kids in a playground and they start playing dodgeball, one team is going to beat another team, right? What's the team that lost going to do? They're going to, on their own, no coaches, no parents, they're going to find the strategy to try to win the next one on their own. They already have that it depends the age, but they can already find those solutions. But instead, we try to harp on them and always try to give them the solution and the tools to win, but they can figure that out on their own. What we have to do is inspire them, create the right challenges, so they can then figure things out on their own, because kids are smart, man. At different ages, they're brilliant. You can make them have a discussion between them, just facilitate the discussion. They come up with things where you're like, you didn't even think about it as a coach. The mistake we often make is that we think we have all the solutions, but we don't have all the solutions.
No, we don't, and it's really hard as a coach, and sometimes helping out when running some of my son's practices. Like, it's hard to take you have to take a deep breath sometimes, and you have to just come down and say that mistake won't happen again, or he'll learn from that mistake, right? We're trying to micromanage sometimes as parent coach, and I'm guilty of that too. Is like my son Gianfranco. No, Gianfranco, don't go there, go here. No, don't go there, go here. He has to learn that he should not go there, and he should be in this position, because I won't be there all the time.
Yeah, but your job as a coach is to guide him to understand why he has to be there. Because if you tell him to be there, he's going to look for that spot on the field, and then when you go play to the next spark, he's going to look for that same spot. Instead, if you explain to him, hey, here's a reason why you should get away from your opponent, now it's going to click, and you're going to start developing that mind of an intelligent player, right? The issue, Steve, we have with and don't get me wrong, our system absolutely needs parent coaches. Our system we're talking about in Quebec, close to 160,000 players in our province, right? So we need the parent coach. We don't have enough professionals, although more and more professionals. We have clubs with full-time TDs, full-time staffs across the province, across the country. But the difference is, so we need the parents coaches, but the expectation of a parent coach is what they see on TV. What they see on TV on the weekend is everybody spread out. Look at the way they're moving the ball. They have possession. So what do? We take that idea, we bring it to 7v7 soccer. Hey, we should be having possession today. We should be moving the ball and knocking it around. You could, if the skill set of the players is at that level, no problem. But if the skill set of the players isn't, then we need to be creating the right challenges for those players so they can achieve that. And you know what? I'll open up a can of worms here, and it's a part of my job. Maybe 7v7 for some kids is not the right format. Maybe they need to be playing 3v3, because in that format, they'll be touching the ball more, they'll be thinking more, there'll be tighter spaces, right? You know, we have that whole debate all the time about futsal, how so many countries start futsal at these young ages until the age of 12, right? A lot of discussions that we have here in our own country. So I think it's all related, but the expectation of an adult and what a kid actually wants to live are two different things. And we can't pretend that they're mini adults. They're not mini adults.
No,
they're kids. They're kids that want to play. What do the kids want to do when they go to practice? They want to play a game so they can smash the ball in the net.
Exactly.
That's what they want to do. So make an exercise with 4 nets, and they can just turn deep, boom, smash a goal. Yeah. Right? That's going to get them pumped. It's going to work on skills, and you get them going that way.
The fun is over, Mikey. I'm going to start asking you about Soccer Quebec.
Okay, go ahead.
So what transitioned you from coaching to your position now at Soccer Quebec?
Well, our coaching jobs in Quebec, or most of the coaching job are technical leadership jobs, technical directors. So coaching a team per se, I mean, I did a little bit of semi-pro in 2012 with FC San Leonardo with Andrea Di Pietrantonio. I did a bit of semi-pro.
Coach
Yeah,
is gonna be
coach,
a guest on the show in
master
case he
coach,
hears this.
master coach is his nickname. Um, a little bit of coaching with Lanaudière, also in the semi-pro league, the PLSQ. But if not, we're always in these leadership roles. It's in organizing programs, setting development pathways for kids, creating pathways for young girls and boys. So we're in those type of jobs. So for me, I moved from Lac Saint Louis region to Bourassa region. From there, I got the opportunity to go to Soccer Quebec. From there, I got an opportunity to go to Manitoba Soccer as technical director of the province. Came back at Lanaudière Soccer, and then back at Quebec Soccer with my second role now, from coaching education to director of development. But yeah, we're in leadership roles where, this morning I had a discussion with Jocelyn Thibault from Hockey Quebec, and the hockey committee invited us to present on a little bit of the work we're doing with grassroots and the club licensing program, and we were exchanging on a few ideas, and in return they're going to present us a few of their ideas. But that's the kind of role, right? It's structuring the game, making sure that there's a place for everybody. In the old time, or even a few years ago, we would have a lot of emphasis were on who, Steve? We're on the best boys and girls at 9, 10, 11, 12. We're talking about 10 players or 12 players per age group. Now we're trying to create a system where you're trying to give the same quality service, which is a hell of a challenge because we need more coaches, but same quality service to all kids that want to play soccer. The same quality service, because you don't know how one kid's going to develop in 2 years, physically mature a little bit, how he's going to develop his skills a little quicker. And then we'll have more players like Holland, who at 16, 17 years old, for the first time is in a pro environment and ends up playing with Dortmund, right? So Jonathan David, another example, the best example, a Canadian example, right? Just late in his development, gets identified. He was in an amateur club, gets identified, a few links here and there, a few trials. Next thing you know, he's scoring
leading scorer of Ligue 1.
Yeah.
A Ligue 1 that includes Neymar and Mbappe.
Yeah.
So that's something that's beyond me. I would be lying to you if I said so I could have predicted that, or anybody would have predicted that. But that's again because of people like you across the country who devote their time to guys like Jonathan David and help them in their career, right? So soccer. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. So at Soccer Quebec, our development statement, our mission is as many players as possible in the best as many as possible for as long as possible in the best environment possible. So, and that's a perfect example with Jonathan David. And you just said it. The work that we keep doing with the young ones and then the teenagers, because you never know when there's going to be opportunities. That we can't close that pyramid at 12 years old anymore. We have to keep it open as much as we can until those ages of 15, 16, 18 years old. In French, you say post-formation. Those ages at 17 to 21 are crucial in the development of a player. And that's when we have to accelerate the development for the ones that need it, a little bit like hockey does, right? With the Q, they have work to do in readjusting a few things for sure. They mentioned it this morning, but I think that's where soccer, we have to put a bit of emphasis, because there's more players out there, just like Jonathan David. We see it on our parks. We see it, you go to Jarry Park, you go to Kent Park, you go to all these parks. There's tons of talent. We just need to create the right systems so they can get in.
Yeah, no. Great points there, great points. So Soccer Quebec, from the time that I've played and you played and now my son is playing, has always been this mystical figure in the province where they govern soccer from above. Now they got punched in the face with a global pandemic. You can't be more honest than that, because no one was prepared for it, and I would be assuming, but I'm probably 100% sure that Soccer Quebec was not ready for a global pandemic. How has Soccer Quebec changed due to COVID?
That's a good question. A lot of things changed. I feel like it was already the idea with club licensing to come a bit closer to clubs and regions, like to create work groups, listen a little bit more rather than always stand at the top and shout out instructions. That was already the objective. I think COVID accelerated that. It forced us to be more flexible, to listen more, to listen to their needs of clubs and of people that are leading literally on the field. And then in terms of coaching education, we transformed everything. It was already in the plans, but we did it in a shorter window. We transformed everything online. So coaching education is done online. Coaches literally film themselves, send in their videos. We watch them, we debrief them. So we learned quickly that everything could be done online. Webinars. We used to have an event once a year where 700 coaches would show up on the same day to watch presentations, to watch field sessions. We did it last March. We did it in an online version. They're still missing that field part that we want to get back, but the learning is still there. Is learning online the best for everybody? No, not everybody learns that way, but at least there was something that was offered. And what's great for us as a province is Soccer Quebec is not, our offices are in Laval, but it's not about Laval or the greater Montreal area. It's about the four corners of this massive province. From Côte-Nord to West du Québec. In September, I went all the way to Baie des Chaleurs. I never went there in my life. So I visited a beautiful part of Quebec, and I saw the work that's being done on the field with these young kids. And 8-9 hours away from here, there's kids wearing Neymar jerseys and Modric jerseys. And the guy told me, Michael Garnier, who runs that club, and he says, hey, 3 years ago, it would be a Canadian's jersey, right? So you see there's an evolution in the sport. More people are attached to CF Montreal. More people now are attached to the women's and the men's team. So there's a massive evolvement there.
So now it's easy, like we said, Soccer Quebec again. How is it different for, again, you said Baie des Chaleurs, these little remote places, and how does Soccer Quebec keep this close knit relationship? Easy for Montreal and Laval, Rive Sud, Rive Nord as well, West Island. But how do they keep this relationship with these remote places, and how do you identify what they're doing well and maybe can implement in the city, where in this remote place it's working great for them, or vice versa? Is there like an exchange of information?
Yeah, that's a good one. So um, there's 18 regions in the province of Quebec. Each region has a regional technical director. We meet roughly once a month online. Right now it's online, used to be in person. And that's where Soccer Quebec passes information. We get the opportunity to exchange on different subjects. And their job is to relay the message to the clubs. So there's a massive network. And when I speak to my colleagues across the country, technical directors of other provinces, they envy that a little bit. They have regional associations, but maybe the regional association only runs competition. We have a technical person in each one of them, which helps us relay the message. Is it perfect? No, we still have to work at communicating. We spoke about that a couple mornings ago in our meeting with them, but at making sure that the message passes through. Where we have difficulty and podcasts and initiations like this one, like this one will definitely help, is getting the message down to the parents, to the players, really to the core of it all. Because we feel like we get to the leaders, the regions and the clubs, but that information, the clubs, we feel like we have to help them more to keep passing the message to the parents. And it's in our Quebec Soccer strategic plan that we're renewing now, 2022-2024. It's communicating better. It's promoting the game better, promoting initiatives that they do in Rimouski, that they do in Abitibi. There's a Sport Études program in Abitibi that it's only a couple of years it exists, never existed before, right? So there's a lot of programs that are going on in the province. We need to speak about them more. But in terms of relaying the message, I think we have some strategies, at least for the leaders. We need to do a better job for parents and stuff.
Yeah. Would Now, speaking of someone that I help out. I wish I would be able to give more of my time to coaching, or to taking, and maybe coaching is not even for me. Maybe is another role in a club. I would love to do it. Long story why I don't. But has Soccer Quebec ever tried to maybe experiment or think of bringing in? I'm not saying someone like me, but a parent who, yes, does not have time to coach, but can represent the parents or can give them some insight on how they can better communicate to parents, whether it be manage your expectations with your kids, uh, understand what Soccer Quebec is doing for your local club. How could you help your local club if even if you're not coaching? Have they ever thought of a program like that where they're not taking a coach, they're taking a normal parent, and normal in big quotations already, I'm out of the question, and putting him in a situation where he has this face to face with guys like yourself, other people at Soccer Quebec, where he can ask tough questions that might not want to be asked in a public atmosphere, but privately he'll get the answers that can be communicated to the rest of the parents.
That does not exist, and I think that's that's a great idea, Steve. Like honestly, that's a I think schools do that, right? They involve parents in a small committee so the parents can share their point of views on how things are
Yeah,
going.
so with schools, it's a board, right? And that board consists of members, parents, teachers, support staff, everybody together. And this was my idea, and something that I would, again. That's why I love having guys like you on, where Soccer Quebec creates this kind of board. To call it almost not a board where they can share discussions and get information from parents that you know of course the parents need to be involved in their son or daughter's soccer career, but not only that, think about the club that they're at and different parents from other clubs, smaller clubs, big clubs, and say, what's going good, what's going on well at these clubs that they see, and what's going wrong at these clubs that you might not hear till it's too late, right? So
Yeah.
that would be something that it's very interesting for a lot of people who have that time to give, and maybe something that Soccer Quebec could explore in the future.
Yeah, and Claudio, one guest there, wrote that maybe it's a committee, a parents committee that should be in each club. There's already each club in Soccer Quebec. We have a board of directors already, but having this committee of parents to listen, I'm all for always listening because we don't live it. Parents are living it. They actually bring their kid to the soccer practice. The club's perspective is one perspective, but knowing the parents' perspective is also important. So I think it's a good idea. We do get a lot of emails from parents. Sometimes, most times, I would say, unhappy with
Yeah,
the way things are going. So then we try to facilitate conversations. But there's a lot of echelons here, right? There's the parent, then there's the coaches, then there's the club, there's the region, then there's Soccer Quebec. So there's a lot of, but we try to we try to develop guides too, the do's and don'ts of parents. There's even posters when you go to a soccer pitch. It says, this is not the World Cup.
yeah,
Just so parents can be a little bit understanding of, the whole refereeing thing bothers me when I go to a
yes,
pitch and the kid in the center field that's whistling, making a mistake, whistling that way when he should have whistled that way, giving a yellow when it should have been a red, or PK or no PK. He's 14 years old or 15 years old, and he's someone's kid.
yeah,
But because we as parents, or the parents, or I'm generalizing, it's not all the parents, but the people watching feel like it's a professional game because they make that relation, then they feel like they can yell at the ref, right?
yeah.
But the ref is silent.
That's a very good point. That's something that needs to be fixed ASAP, because there might be a certain point where these kids at 14 years old, they're gonna say, "I don't want to ref." And if you ask me, Mike, I'll be very honest with you. If the refs out there, whoever's listening out there in the internet land, I personally would never ref.
Yeah,
And if my son would want to ref, I'd personally tell him, "You're not going to ref," because there's no control. There. It's too
abuse.
risky.
It's abuse.
It's abuse, and it's too risky, right? So the ref situation, I agree. I'm saying in Quebec. I'm just saying because we're speaking right now. That's something that needs to be fixed. We'll move away from Soccer Quebec, and we'll talk about the CDC. So the CDC was a hot button topic. It collided with COVID.
Yeah.
If you could just explain to maybe people who don't know what the CDC is, uh, we'll start off with that. Explain, give us a little short resume on
Yeah.
CDC and what it is.
Yeah. So CDC stands for Centre de Développement des Clubs. In English, the version is skill centers. It's an initiative that started from Canada Soccer. So there's principles that go with the CDC, and the principles are fairly simple. They're very global. There's no more tryouts until the 4 to 12 years old, and those grassroots ages that we call soccer de base. There's no tryouts. So don't organize tryouts, because if a kid wants to play soccer, allow him to play soccer. Just make sure that you facilitate the programming, so there's an environment for that kid. Some kids need the higher level environment at 12 years old. Some kids need the basic environment at 12 years old. So that's one principle. Second principle, that we're trying to pull away from the idea of having fixed teams, right? So we lived it at young ages, Steve. We had a fixed group, right? We were those 16 players, and it was rare that a player would integrate that group. Maybe off season after the year is done, but that team would stay together no matter what. What we're saying, until the age of 12, and even later, to have open rosters. And the concept of open roster is simple. You know that the players that are like-minded, that want more, that they sleep with a soccer ball at night because they love soccer, those ones will come and train 3 times a week, right? Because they want it so much. Those players typically are the ones that excel, that want more, right? But in that group of, you need to show up at your match for a U9 game, you're 12 players, let's say, or 10 players. In that group of 10 or 12 players, the 11th and the 12th one, if the first game they struggle, and the second game they struggle, and the 9th game they struggle, what's going to happen at the end of the season after 16 games?
They might not want to play.
They might not want to play. So the open roster concept, what it tells us is the way to manage it, and it's more work for the clubs, is that 11th and 12th player, if after 4 games we feel that it's a struggle and they need a challenge that's more adequate to them, you're free as a club to say, hey, have a conversation, say, I think you can go to this group, you can dominate it, shows that you can dominate that group, and you'll work your way back up. And maybe from that second group, what happens to the kid, the top 4 that were crushing it in group 2? What do they need about after 4 or 5 games? They need to maybe go get challenged with group 1. And it's not a question of scoring more goals it's a question of developing their skills and the speed of the play and the thinking on the field. That's the open roster concept. And it's hard to manage. Clubs have developed, we have good examples of clubs that have developed like a whole system where they track players. After every practice, they go in, the coach goes in, the paid coach goes in and puts a little data on each player. And every 4 weeks, they kind of not reshuffle the whole groups. They reshuffle just a few players that need those challenges. But Steve, if I'm a coach and I come and see you as a parent, I never told you about this concept, and I tell you for the first time after 4 weeks, hey, I think your kid should go in group 2. What are you gonna do? You're gonna lose it, no?
Yeah, the parent will not who doesn't understand, and is blinded by the misconception,
Yeah.
is destined to have a meltdown for this.
But instead,
And again, it should not be a meltdown. It should be something. It should be a discussion, and it should be something that your kid needs to learn from. But and this is what parents are not understanding. And now I don't know how many people are going to see this podcast. I hope there's going to be 20,000 people that are going to see it. But things like this need to be communicated, because at the club level, some clubs do it well. Some clubs, I can tell you right here, and again, this is not my internet, this is Steve. Some clubs suck at it. Absolutely suck at it. And it comes to my question, which is a very frustrating question. How does Soccer Quebec make sure that these clubs are doing it right?
So club licensing is a part of it. There's still work to do. We do technical visits. We show up unannounced 3 times per summer planification at the club. It's a lot of work. It's 2 years that we're doing it. We're going on our 3rd one, but it helps. But what happens now is we show up at the CDC. It's unannounced, so they see the badge. It says Soccer Quebec from myself or any other staff that's been hired to do the project. So what happens is that the club on the spot makes the phone calls and scrambles a little bit to place everything properly.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's not good, but they did it.
They did it, yes.
And you hope that the second time, that now you show up and those standards have kind of been understood. And by the third time, you hope you have fully influenced them. Are there some that take longer time to get there? Absolutely. And every club has different infrastructure, different resources. It's kind of normal. But for me, if a club is contributing to the development of our sport, to the development of kids, they're putting efforts to try to facilitate conversation with parents, they're on the right track. But everyone moves at a different speed. Some clubs can move that needle right away. Some clubs, it takes 2 years to move the needle. So we're starting to do the work. We're starting to be a bit more present. Like I said, we're starting to listen a bit more. But we see a change in the CDC.
I have another suggestion for you.
Yeah, you're on fire, by the way.
The unannounced is perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Guys, me and Mike did not talk before here. You know how Milan Weekly podcast goes. I shoot questions, Mike answers. For me, what would help, and I think Soccer Quebec would be you guys who should not, well, I'm say should not. It's how can I word this to be as respectful as possible? You guys need to be doing what you do on a daily and not waste your time spot checking these clubs. Because the club, if they can't understand that they've received this license and are giving, and if they're not doing it properly, are taking away from the kids, there should be repercussions. And those repercussions should be known throughout not only Soccer Quebec, they should be known throughout the city that they're in, because you're taking away from the kids. So without having Soccer Quebec ever entertain, I made it up, I call them phantom parents, where committee that works together to talk a little bit about what they hear from the clubs, grades and is informed enough and educated enough to say, hey, you know what, this CDC practice was good, or you know what, Mike, I went to the CDC practice of club ABC, and wow, they were terrible. It wasn't even CDC. It was bring your kid, throw him on a field, and make him run around for an hour.
That's I'm telling you, on fire. I'm gonna write. Well, this is recorded, so I'm gonna watch it again and write all. That's good. Like a incognito.
Incognito. You never known. If it's Steve Polillo, they'll never know. And Steve Polillo cannot, as a parent, if he wants to do this, cannot go to, I live in RDP. I cannot do it for RDP. I have to go somewhere where I can be Switzerland, completely unbiased. Come back to you and say, Mike, club, I don't know, send me to Ville Saint Laurent. I can't even go to Ville Saint Laurent. Send me to send me somewhere else. Send me to Rive Sud. I know no one at Rive Sud. You know what, Mike? I went to Rive Sud's practice, the CDC. It was excellent. They had everything exactly the way you guys wanted it. Check. That's the only way you guys, if Soccer Quebec opens up a little bit of their imagination, and I'm a big guy in terms of thinking outside the box, Soccer Quebec can use these parents who want to give back and might not be able to coach, or need to bring their son to a practice and want to give but can't be on the field. Well, let's use them for something. They're there anyways. They're going to drop off their kids. They need a little bit of education from Soccer Quebec, and you have yourself your own little, I'm not even going to say policeman, it's just a spot checker, just to say what's going on, right? So I thought about that, and I was happy that I was talking to you because I wanted to bring it up.
Cool idea. Very, very cool. And it could be the same people on that board we mentioned earlier that, they have that perspective and they can feed back information from the parents, because knowing what happens on the pitch is important, and knowing what the parents sign up for this, right? So back to the CDC, now a parent signs up for a different program. They can click, for example, some clubs call it CDC1. CDC1 is one practice and you play your game. CDC3 is 3 practices and you play your game. So each level of club, quality soccer provider, regional level club, provincial level club, and national level club, have different standards that they have to provide. Their offre de service, their what they offer as a service. And parents pick based on the kid's ambition. They pick where the kid wants to go. So that's another one of the principles of CDC. And the last principle of CDC or skill center is that they train by atelier workstations. So
Yes.
you can have 40 kids on 4 small stations, and with a coach per station, with one responsible for the 4 stations, and they're either doing all the same thing, either the kids are rotating through stations. But what we ask there is that there's a high level of players touching the ball, no players waiting in line for their shot every 3 minutes,
High
right?
intensity, always with the ball.
High intensity. You finish a 10-minute activity, the kid have to be dripping
Yeah.
because they have to leave home. The parents have to be happy that the kids wants to take a nap instead of
Yeah.
still bouncing off the walls because it was boring at practice, right? That's the point of sport, to learn how to surpass yourself. Like sometimes my brother or others would make comments to me that kids, they play 10 minutes in a game and they're asking for subs. We have to make them tougher. Back to your first question earlier.
Yes.
We have to make them fight through that physical pain that you'll feel, that you're having a hard time running or breathing, or you get knocked on your ankle and you get up.
Getting a workout. In the end, they're getting a physical activity and a physical workout.
Yeah. So that's a little bit of the CDC, and it was a tough implementation with COVID for sure. Clubs did a fantastic job though, really making sure that the all the sanitation measures were put in place and all of that. Very challenging, but what we want to shift now with the clubs is that they have certain flexibility within the CDC to express their own way of coaching kids. But again, with the high number of touches, high intensity, that's a non-negotiable,
Yeah.
right?
My next question for CDC for you, Mike, is I know you went through the different levels, and we, of course, national was is, let's say, we call the platinum level of the licenses. From your experience in going through this process, and of course it was new for Soccer Quebec as it was new for the rest of the provinces, were you surprised at the amount of registrations or of people who applied for the national team level license?
Yes, and it doesn't surprise me. Like in anything, Steve, if we put a dartboard in front of me and you, what are we aiming? We're aiming the bullseye, right?
Not necessarily. If you know how to play
Triple
the game,
20, I
not
know you're aiming
necessarily. Triple
triple 20.
20.
I know.
That's my point. And it's good that you brought that up. Some people look only for that bullseye, but are not understanding that sometimes it's better to take a little bit of a step back than do that. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many of these clubs actually got the national level license, but I'm pretty sure there was some tough conversations with the clubs who applied and did not get it.
Yeah, and so 2019, 25 or 26 clubs applied just for the national one,
Yeah.
and 7 ended up getting it.
7 out of 26.
Yeah, and the rest got
Provincial,
and some got regional as well. And now there's applications again, but in the last 2 years we've done tremendous work. Soccer Quebec has done tremendous work with their staffs to implement the program, to get it started. But now I took the opportunity in September with some staff internally to reevaluate. Like in any program, you have to reevaluate. What did we do well? What did we do well? It's important to always look at ourselves in the mirror, like I asked the clubs to do, right? Don't look at the other guy's grass. Look at your own grass. Look at yourself in the mirror, making sure that, because when you compare yourself, you're not worrying about you're not putting the player at the middle of your decisions. You're worrying about he has national, I want national too, but that's not what this is about. This is so in that evaluation that self-evaluation we did, we realized that we want to stabilize and help clubs find their identity and their place in the structure. We want clubs one day, Steve, to say, hey, I'm a regional club. I'm damn proud of it. I'll develop kids as best as I could with the coaches that we have until 12, 13, 14. And then we're gonna have a link with a national club, and we'll send our better players there, because that's the environment. Right now, everybody's fighting for that top level.
Yes.
We're fighting for the same players. We're fighting for the same coaches. It's getting better. Like, I don't want to disrespect anything that the clubs are doing, because they're doing tremendous work, but we're still turning the big ship. It's turning, but I feel that we're turning it. We're going in the right direction. So that's one thing. We want clubs to be held accountable, but the biggest change is we want clubs that if they apply, they have to really analyze, do they have the human resources to do it? Do they have
Yes.
the financial resources to do it? Is it the right time? Do they have the bassin, the pool of players? Do they have the infrastructure? Do they have the right people that can come into their governance? Because we look at governance as well, right? We will make sure that the governance is certain amount of members, not 12, but 8. We make sure that the people are non-representative as much as we can, having professionals on the boards. By looking at all these things, it makes it difficult to get a national license, but everybody wants to apply. And what happens? They don't get it and they get upset. Well, how come they get it? Well, they got it because they deserved it, because they
Just,
structured their clubs.
just a little, a small question to the question. So we 26 applied, 7 did not. The 7 got it, leaving us with 19. No, well, my math is terrible.
There was 16 provincial clubs
Okay.
and 20 something, because in all 50, in
Yes.
all 160 applied. But
Okay.
some applied quality soccer, some applied
Okay.
regional, and then you trickle down. So now in Quebec, there's 116 clubs out of 160 that have one of the 4 levels.
One of the 4 levels. So the ones who applied for, I mean, I'm sticking with national just because it was the most complicated, and talking to you and knowing a little bit about it with the most rigid profile to whether you would get it or not. Once that club applies and gets rejected, what's their process after that? Do they get a report from Soccer Quebec saying you did XYZ wrong, and to get it, you have to fix XYZ, or it's up to that club to figure it out?
No,
Second question inside there is, does that club automatically get a provincial license if they got rejected for the national license?
so if right now you're a provincial club applying for national, and you don't succeed for X or Y reason, I'll get to that first question after. You remain provincial.
Okay.
When we started in 2019, everybody had nothing.
Yes.
So they've applied at the level they thought. And if they apply national, you could have scaled it back and said, well, you're actually a regional level. But now that club has regional, right?
So now they're waking up.
Yeah. What we're also changing is that you can't apply regional, you can't apply for a national club anymore.
You got to go the steps.
You got to go the steps. That's a learning that we had. That's clear, except for 4 clubs who've applied already before I made these changes. So that we're going to honor it, like that we have to be upfront about.
So you grandfathered it, they're grandfathered in.
Exactly. So for them, they're going to go through the process of national this summer. We'll evaluate them. Hopefully for them, everything goes well. And if they do, they'll get national. If not, then, and they're high enough, they'll get provincial. Those are 4 exceptions, and everybody's aware of that. Back to your first question, yeah. So for a national club, Canada Soccer is involved in the process, right? Because it's their program.
Yes.
This goes on along the whole country. We took a different approach to it, and by different, I mean we launched it in one shot, all 4 levels. Most provinces started with that soccer quality level only. Then now they're looking at the next level. And then they'll work. There's only 4 provinces that have national clubs. It's Quebec, Ontario, BC, and Alberta. So 2 in the east, let's say, and 2 in the west. But yeah, there's a report from Canada Soccer and Quebec Soccer that's given to the club, so they know the areas, the gaps that they showed throughout the year. It can be technical visits, like it can be staffing, like some it's budget. You want to operate all these programs. It's nice on paper, but you show X amount, but you need X plus 400% to run those, right? So those are the gaps we show, and hopefully that club takes those gaps and works on them to try to apply another time.
You touched on something in this. I'm going to ask you, and please tell me, Steve, I'm not answering it or it's not appropriate. But, I always get scared when we start talking about money and youth soccer. It's something that just really doesn't jive for me. I think it should be, not that it should be abolished. Obviously, money is needed, right? And now these clubs applying for a national level, you just said it. The finances are something that that Canada looks at as well. What's Canada's process to look at these finances? Because this club in theory should be a non-profit, but now you're asking them to show profit. Is Canada going to reevaluate this and look at this and say, are we creating a monster here? Because everybody's looking for inscriptions, right? So, if example, club ABC doesn't have the national license, and I have a son who has great expectations. Well, I'm gonna go to club BCD because they have a national team license. Is the finance part a scary part for both Soccer Quebec and Soccer Canada? Because we could be creating a monster here, right?
Yeah. So the end in mind is that it is a nonprofit, and we want the line at the end of the year to be zero, with maybe a surplus that you can keep in the bank for cases like COVID,
Yes.
right? Where you have that safety net. That's for sure. Uh, the requirements for a national club are high in terms of coaching certifications, in terms of amount of training sessions. That demands money, and that money comes from kids who paid their inscription, right? There's no
Yes.
there's no hiding this. It's a pay to play organization, but a lot of clubs do a really good job getting sponsored, getting partners that work with them, to marketing companies, to really work with them to try to get the club out and get extra funds that way. There's subventions that are available from the government for clubs as well. Municipalities have subventions that can help for coaches, coaching education and stuff like that. So will it shift a little bit and become more expensive maybe for a national club? It's possible. Um, I think clubs so far have done a good job to try to balance that out, to make sure that it's not exaggerated and the kid is not paying. We have examples in other sports or examples in other provinces where it's $5,000, $6,000 per year.
Yeah.
Um, that's definitely not what we have in mind, and that's not where we want it to end up. Like
Yeah.
we want to keep it way lower
I,
than that.
I asked that just because going through this global pandemic and all the different things, it's always everything is going up, right? And I remember soccer, and soccer has profited for them for the longest time of being something that's affordable for everybody. Does Soccer Quebec, partnered with Soccer Canada, have some sort of idea or program to try to trim this cost down for the parents? Because it's going to reach a point where parents might have to make a decision,
Yeah.
because it is starting to get expensive, and certain kids are dual sports kids, and before they were able to play both, now they're going to need to choose one of the two. And some might choose, example, hockey, some might choose soccer, but they won't be able to do both. Does Soccer Quebec think about that, of inscriptions maybe at one point going down because the price of soccer is going up now?
It's a good question, and we have those reflections internally about maybe standardizing the minimum that, like, if a kid wants one session, one match, it shouldn't exceed X amount across the board. Is it doable? I'm not convinced, because partnerships with one municipality is completely different than another. Indoor facility at one place costs $700 an hour, one place costs $200 an hour. But then let's not forget the gyms. Where did you grow up playing indoor soccer?
Yeah.
Gyms.
Corbiar and in the gym. Yeah.
In the gym. Gym costs $50, $60, maybe now $90 an hour. But an indoor field doesn't cost that much. An indoor field costs way more than that, right? A seven-a-side
Yes.
pitch or a full pitch. So that's important too. But I feel like a lot of clubs have shared this with me, that we lost our contracts or contacts with gyms or school boards, because we kind of said, oh no, we have our indoor complex, and all these indoor complex, right? Private companies or cities have built these complexes, so by default we go there. But naturally the price goes up, right?
Yeah.
So there's a balance to be had. One action that we do with Canada Soccer, it was their idea, and we kind of implemented it this year, is the 7 national clubs and the 15 or 16 provincial clubs. At the end of the year, we met them. Catherine, my colleague, and myself met them in November, one-on-one, 1-hour meeting, and we showed them a year-end report. These are clubs that showed 1 year of provincial, we give them a year-end report, or 1 year of national, we give them a year-end report. And we show them, and it's not a perfect science, but what we did is we took their programming from their clubs, we took the prices they charge, we divided it by number of sessions and all that, and it came up to an amount. And the benchmark we set is $15 in a summer activity, $15 per activity. And there's some clubs that are at $9 per activity. And it's decent. $9, you go $10,
Yes.
let's say 20 times, it costs $200, but you get 20 practices out of it, plus the game. So $9 an activity is great. There's some that are $16, $17, $18. So we're trying to get the clubs to understand that that's the benchmark that Canada Soccer helped us establish. Then there's a difference between what U4 to U8 should be and U9 to U12, because U9,
Yes.
U12, we expect better coaches, maybe
Yes.
parent coaches that have followed the community courses or the C license. That costs more money.
Yeah.
So maybe we're going to differentiate that in the future, but at $15 an activity on average for grassroots, I'm talking really the 4 to 12s. It's a good benchmark, and it was a good eye opener for us to help clubs, because being accessible is one of our values at Soccer Quebec. And we know prices are going to go up, but we can't control if the field next door just decided to raise $100 an hour their field. Like, how do we control that?
No, like I take for example, and it's segue to my to talk about something a little bit more exciting and happy, instead of like numbers and prices of the pitch that we want to practice on. Is Canada made a significant investment in the podium program for the Olympics, where they decided where they were going to give the athletes this break where, money's not going to be a problem for you. Think about training. So I think too, like, again, they've talked about it. Premier Legault has talked about it here in Quebec in terms of hockey, where he has to figure out a way to lower the cost of hockey. But once he said that, that's why this question came up. But why limit it only to hockey? What's more special about hockey than it is about soccer? You actually hit more people if you limit and trim down soccer than you do with hockey.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, all the hockey parents out there, I do watch hockey, and I think it should be for all sports. Don't limit it to hockey. Why is hockey more special than soccer? It's not. It's actually probably least popular in terms of kids, because there's more kids playing soccer than they are playing soccer. More kids playing soccer than there are playing hockey.
Yeah.
So that's why that was my question. There is like there should be something and pressure, not only Soccer Quebec, whatever they call Ontario soccer or whatever they call Manitoba soccer, all the soccer associations to say, hey, why are you limiting it to hockey in the province? What about soccer? And I think that would be something that, trickle down from the government to the provinces, from the provinces to the municipalities, and say, you know what? It was $100 an hour for the field. Well, now, this club could create jobs in the future for some of the residents. Maybe it's 75, 50, but there has to be a control, and there has to be a governance where we might need to make sure that the money is getting to the right people and invested in the right people. For me, I think that it's always very hard when it comes to money, and I hate mixing money with youth and development. It's just always so difficult, and I tip my hat to you guys for having to navigate that stuff there. So that's all, just my little rant there for you.
On a little side note related to that, we are the biggest. Soccer Quebec is the biggest federation in the province in terms of numbers.
Wow.
But we don't always feel that way, because there's these comments sometimes from the premier or from the minister of sports, where you feel like, and we were open about it, right? Even our president's involved in having conversations with the sous-ministre and all that, and he says it is hockey the only sport in this? Like, even baseball reacts, and even other sports react. And this morning it was a good conversation with the hockey people, and there was exchanges, and like, at the end of the day, we want more kids to practice sport. We want more kids to develop values, and but they want a plan so there could be more Quebecers in the NHL. Okay, but we want more Quebecers in the national team
Yes,
as well.
yes, and in our national team, I want to see more Montrealers, more Lavallians, more Quebecers in our national team, and we didn't have that, and you saw. And again, segue to the national team. We're going to talk about that for a bit. I'm pretty sure you're proud of what they're doing. We're proud of what they're doing. I'm going to take some questions because we have a question from Francis Colagiacomo. Francis asks, with the recent success of the Canadian men's national team, do you believe that the men's game has finally turned the corner and moved on to become a respectable soccer program?
You want me to answer that, or there's another question?
There's another one after. So Francis, I understand he's typing the way he talks. So
Yeah, I do feel like we turned the corner. The generation of players is special, and they're extremely young, right? We speak about the Buchanan, David, Davies, even Laren is right there, and then Atiba and Boyan giving their experience to the group. Piet is still very young, so we're turning the corner. We have that talent, but knowing the next generations, knowing the work that's being done by Andrew Olivieri now, who's the director of youth national teams, and I was lucky enough to be on the staff for the U17 at the World Cup, with Morrow with the U23s for the qualification, for the Olympic qualification, and I see the next generations of players, and it's unbelievable. Like there's players coming through the pipeline, and I'm sure there's more. COVID hurt us a little bit because there was a few special generations there that we would have liked to, Canada Soccer, I'm sure, would have liked to work with in international events. But the work is being done. Hopefully, we can get back to youth events soon. But Ralph Prizzo coming through the pipeline, Jaden Nelson coming through the pipeline, Matthew Catavolo coming through the pipeline, Sean Rea coming through. Like there's players coming through.
all future guests of the local soccer show.
Absolutely. And these are all players I had the opportunity to coach at U17. Now the idea, the challenge, Steve, is always is making sure that these kids are in the right environment at those ages of post formation, somewhere between 17 and 21. They need to be in the right environment where they're getting minutes, where they're playing against men, they're taking elbows in the face, right? That's the experience they need now to say, I can go establish myself in a second division in Belgium, a second division in England. They need to find those environments, right? So that's the biggest challenge we have. Because if we have a fantastic 18-year-old sitting on the bench on a CPL team or a MLS Next Pro team or any team, we're not serving that player. So I do think, Francis, that we turned the corner. It's due to long-term player development from 10, 12 years ago. It's due to the professionalization of sport, right? We have more professionals in the game. We have like 80 or 90 full-time technical directors in our province, if not more. I should probably know that number, but we have we have
We'll edit it out, Mikey. We'll edit it out.
Yeah. So that shift, it's there to stay. And I remember in 2018 when we invited John Herdman. He just had taken the men's job. And he said it clearly to 700 coaches because there was no COVID back then. And he said, believe it, we're going to go to the 2022 World Cup and get on the bus now, or the train. I think he said, get on the train. I still have that clip. I think I'm going to send it to him once we officially qualify.
Yeah.
Get on. And if you don't want to get on the train now because you're always skeptical and you're this and that, he says, well, get the hell out. He didn't say hell. He said another word.
Yeah.
But he said, get the hell out then, because we don't need you. We want people that are going to support the badge, that are going to stand on guard for the country. And that stayed with me. And I passed, it was in English, but I passed that message along in the province because we're seeing it now.
Yeah.
And it's not chance. It's not luck. It's not just luck.
We are shot, and I'm not going to be here and say that I could have predicted this or I thought that it was going to happen. I didn't know. And I didn't know what the results were going to be. But impressive, right? And again, and especially these last three games where we played three opponents that usually give us a hard time, and we beat them all without allowing a goal and missing our best player, who was live on a Twitch feed, which was fantastic, to be very honest with you. Because let's get real, and I said this on the podcast on Monday, Alfonso Davies doesn't need to be watching that game on the Twitch feed.
Yeah.
He wanted to show that he cares, and that's something that I took, and I got someone send me the clip, and I was watching. I was like, that's amazing. Like, no, there's not a lot of people that would do that, and you saw that he actually cares. And Bayern Munich, Champions League winner, he cares. He wants to go to the World Cup, and I can only tip my hat to someone like that and his dedication. And again, not because it's Alfonso Davies and he's going to come on the local soccer show. It could have been anybody else. You put yourself out there, and millions of people watching throughout his social network, saying, "Hey, Alfonso's watching his national team. He can't be there, but he's watching them, and
Yeah.
he's showing you that he's watching it." So that was amazing.
Steve, what's one reason besides the talent and the coaching? What's one reason Italy won the Euro? Right? It's this.
Yeah, the unity.
It's the unity. It's the brotherhood that you saw in the Rai four episode series. Right? You see them. They're a family, and you see that in our national team now. You see guys like really protecting each other. You see the way they're standing for each other. You see the way they
animated. They're animated on the bench. Those shots for the reverse angles.
Yeah.
Of certain things that happen is fantastic. You see people, they're jumping out of their seats, and they're on the bench and they're waiting for their number to be called, but they're still engaged, and that's really important.
Yeah.
We saw it. I think it was Sirigu, the third choice keeper for Italy in the Euro. He was it Sirigu? Am I right? Am I right? Yeah, he was kind of like their cheerleader. He knew he wasn't going to play a game, but he was there. He was there for the ride, and he was there for the moral support. And they have that as a team. You see them; they're bonding. Yeah. The last question I have, and I think it's an interesting one. It's from Peter. He wants to know, being someone that's gone through those different levels of coaching, kids, should they stop being coached by that parent volunteer? And if I'm wording it wrong there, but at what age should a kid start? It's enough with the parent volunteer. He needs some more structure. He needs someone with a little bit more pedigree to take him to another level.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a perfect science to an age, but what I could tell you is that Iceland, in their reform about 8 or 9 years ago, they made a drastic change, and they said everybody with a certain level license is going to go coach the young ones, and that definitely brought a change. But less players, small geographically, right? As our province is structured differently. Yeah. So for me, it's not a question of age when the parent coach stops, because like I said, they're important and we need them. It's a question of three things. A player needs to find one, fun, right? He needs to have a blast in a session. Yes. And a blast for a kid is not that he's joking around and he's doing backflips. Fun is being able to touch the ball a lot. Fun is being able to challenge his teammate, his colleague or his teammate. Fun is that a girl is able to deke and smash 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals. Yeah. That's fun for the kids. Number 2, they need to be learning. You need to stimulate their brain. At school, we're stimulating their brain, right? And there's debates about that, about our school structure. We won't get into that. But on the soccer pitch, we need to be stimulating their brain and make them getting cognitively invested in what they're doing, because they're so smart. And the third one is we need to be challenging them constantly to perform, to se surpasser, right? That kids have to want to get better and
challenge themselves.
Yeah, to challenge themselves. So if those 3 things are lost, Peter, that's where, or one of them is lost, or 2 of them is lost. That's where maybe it's not. And it could be that it's a professional coach that's with a group. Yeah. I've coached a group with the CNHP for 3 years. And after the 3 years, like, you almost have nothing to give them anymore. They've heard the same voice over and over. And I was living from soccer. So it's not only the parent coach, it's even any coach. But as soon as the parent volunteer coach loses that, and the club is not giving him the tools to provide fun, learning, and the challenges, then it's time to find another. That's the way I see it. It's not an age perfect age thing.
Yeah, perfect. We are, guys, for everybody listening and who's tuning in live, thank you very much. For who's gonna listen in their car tomorrow, or who's gonna take this local soccer show and send it to your local club. See what we're trying to do here with someone like Mike. I'll be honest with you, Mike's the first guest. One, because he's a fellow RDPer like me. Two, he's a Milanist, so I had no choice, but he had to be number one. Um, we're gonna do this every 2 Thursdays, so bi-weekly, just to shed some light on local soccer. Guys like Mike who put in a lot of hard work. If you guys have ideas for guests that you would like us to reach out to, please send them to Presidente, who is in the back room. He's at master control. Presidente is at master control. So Presidente, if there's no other questions, guys, we're gonna wrap this up for tonight. I already took an hour of Mike's time. Imagine, an hour flew by, and I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
I could have kept him for another hour. Uh, Guys, please share this. It's something very important to myself and everybody at Milan Weekly Podcast. We want to give back to local soccer. We want to focus the conversation to the grassroots. And guys, thank you very much for tuning in to the local soccer show. We'll be back in two weeks time with a guest to be announced shortly. Mike, I want to thank you. I want to give you the opportunity to sign off and let people know your last message before we call it a night.
It's simple. Thank you, El Presidente, and thank you, Steve, for having me. It's always an honor, and I'm happy to come back anytime you guys want to talk local soccer. It's a pleasure, and that's my message for everybody who's on the pitch. Working with kids, just keep doing what you're doing, and we appreciate your passion. We appreciate you being on the field with the little ones, and and ask for help, and hopefully we can provide it. And let's keep that conversation going, because we're on the right track, but there's always room for improvement, and I think it's going to get better as soon as we qualify for Qatar. It's gonna change the game forever in this country, and I think we're going to be ready for it, because we have more and more people that are engaged in all of this. So I can't wait.
Mikey, thank you very much. Presidente, let's wrap it up. Wrap it up.